The holographic star map flickered to life in the center of the council chamber, casting blue light across the faces of delegates from 47 different worlds. Each representative sat in their designated atmospheric pod, breathing their home air while debating the future of lesser civilizations across the galaxy. Commander Roth adjusted his uniform and stepped forward to address the assembly. His species, the Krell, had dominated military strategy for 3 centuries, and today he would present what he believed to be the perfect training exercise for their newly formed unified expansion fleet. "Honored delegates," Roth began, his voice carrying through the translation matrix to every pod in the chamber. "We have identified an ideal target for our first coordinated expansion effort. A small world in the outer rim, designated by its inhabitants as Earth." The star map zoomed in, showing a blue and green planet orbiting a yellow star. Data streams appeared alongside the image, displaying everything the galactic intelligence networks had gathered over decades of observation. "The dominant species calls themselves humans," Roth continued. "Our analysis shows a primitive civilization with no unified government, no energy shield technology, and no faster-than-light capability. They fight among themselves using chemical explosives and metal projectiles. Their most advanced weapons are crude nuclear devices that would barely scratch our ship hulls." Delegate Mira from the Centauri Trade Federation leaned forward in her pod. "What makes this world worth our attention, Commander? Surely there are easier targets with more valuable resources." Roth smiled, the expression lost on most of the alien delegates. "That is precisely the point, Delegate Mira. This world is not about resources. It is about training. Our unified fleet has never operated together in a real combat scenario. We need a target that will provide experience without significant risk." The data streams updated, showing human military forces. Images of tanks, aircraft, and soldiers filled the display. To the assembled galactic powers, they looked like toys compared to their own energy weapons and powered armor. "The humans have approximately 8 billion individuals scattered across 7 continents," Roth explained. "They are divided into nearly 200 separate political entities, many of which are actively hostile to each other. Intelligence suggests they would be unable to coordinate any meaningful resistance." Elder Counselor Vane shifted uncomfortably in her atmospheric pod. The ancient Ashanti had survived longer than any other species in the galaxy by being cautious, and something about this presentation troubled her. "Commander Roth, your analysis seems thorough, but I must ask about the humans' survival characteristics. How has this species reached such population levels despite their apparent primitive nature?" Roth dismissed the question with a wave. "They reproduce quickly and have faced no significant external threats. Their success is simply biological luck, nothing more." The hologram shifted to show human cities, vast metropolises filled with billions of beings going about their daily lives. To the galactic observers, they looked chaotic and unorganized, nothing like the ordered societies of advanced civilizations. "The operation would be simple," Roth continued. "We deploy 200 ships in simultaneous positions above their major population centers. We demand surrender and wait for their primitive governments to comply. Based on our psychological profiles, they will submit within days rather than face destruction." Delegate Knox from the Silicon Collective processed the data through his mechanical consciousness. "The risk assessment appears minimal. However, what contingencies exist if the humans prove more resilient than anticipated? With respect, Delegate Knox, what could they possibly do against our technology?" Roth pulled up comparative weapon statistics. "Their most powerful explosive devices generate energy equivalent to what our smallest scout ships produce for routine operations. They have no defense against energy weapons, no counter to our shielding systems, and no way to reach our ships in orbit." The assembled delegates murmured agreement. The presentation made Earth seem like an ideal training ground, a place where their combined fleets could practice coordination against an enemy too weak to cause real damage. Elder Counselor Vane tried once more. "Commander, in my experience, species that survive long enough to reach planetary dominance usually possess hidden strengths. The humans have not only survived but thrived despite their internal conflicts. Perhaps we should study them more carefully before committing to invasion." Several delegates turned toward the elderly Ashanti. Her people were known for their wisdom, but they were also known for excessive caution that had prevented them from expanding beyond their home system for millennia. "Elder Vane," said Delegate Prime Alpha from the Synthetic Collective, "your concerns are noted, but the data is clear. The humans possess no technology that could threaten our forces. Their society is fragmented, their weapons primitive, and their response to superior force is predictable based on all known psychological models. Roth nodded gratefully. The synthetic collective's analysis confirms our own. This operation will serve multiple purposes. Our fleet commanders will gain combat experience, our various species will learn to coordinate in battle, and we will acquire a new world for resource extraction. The humans can be relocated to preserve them as a study subject if the Council desires. The debate continued for another hour, but the outcome was never in doubt. Representative after representative endorsed the plan. The humans appeared to be perfect opponents for a training exercise, strong enough to provide realistic combat conditions, but too weak to pose any real threat. When the vote was called, only Elder Counselor Vane abstained. 46 civilizations agreed to proceed with the invasion of Earth. As the council session ended and delegates returned to their ships, Vane remained in her pod, staring at the image of the blue world. Something about the humans' chaotic cities and their endless small conflicts reminded her of her own people's ancient history, back when the Ashanti were young and thought they understood the galaxy. She activated her personal communication device and sent a message to her homeworld. "Monitor the human invasion carefully," she instructed her aides. "I fear we are about to learn something important about underestimating survival traits." In the depths of space, the unified expansion fleet began assembling. 200 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy, prepared for what their commanders believed would be an easy victory against a primitive, defenseless world. None of them questioned why a species with no apparent military advantages had not only survived but prospered on their world for thousands of years. None of them wondered what hidden strengths might exist beneath the surface of human civilization. They would learn soon enough. The first shadow fell across Manhattan at exactly 9:47 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Office workers on their way to meetings stopped on sidewalks and pointed upward as a massive shape blotted out the sun. The alien ship stretched for miles above the city, its dark hull reflecting no light as it hung motionless in the sky. Similar scenes played out across the globe within minutes. London's financial district ground to a halt as another enormous vessel appeared above the Thames. Beijing's morning rush hour turned into chaos when commuters emerged from subway stations to find an alien craft hovering over the Forbidden City. The pattern repeated in Moscow, Delhi, São Paulo, and dozens of other major cities worldwide. Admiral Hayes stood in the Pentagon's Emergency Command Center, watching satellite feeds from around the world. 40 years of military service had prepared him for many scenarios, but nothing like this. The ships had appeared simultaneously without any warning from radar or satellite detection systems. "Sir, we're getting the same readings from all locations," reported Lieutenant Morris, his voice tight with stress. "No energy signatures we can identify, no communication attempts, no hostile actions yet. They're just sitting there." Hayes nodded grimly. "What about our defensive capabilities? F-22s are scrambling from Andrews and Norfolk. Nuclear submarines are moving to launch positions. But sir, these ships are enormous. Our largest aircraft carrier would fit inside one of their smallest visible sections." On screens around the command center, panicked crowds filled streets in every major city. Some people fled, others stood transfixed, and many held up phones to record humanity's first contact with alien life. The response was chaotic, unorganized, and exactly what anyone studying human behavior might have predicted. At 10:15 a.m., the silence ended. Every television, radio, and internet-connected device on Earth received the same transmission simultaneously. The message appeared in hundreds of languages, perfectly translated and delivered in calm, mechanical voices. "People of Earth, we are the Unified Expansion Fleet, representing 47 civilizations of the Galactic Council. Your world has been selected for integration into our sphere of influence. You have 72 hours to arrange the surrender of your military forces and the cooperation of your governments. Compliance will ensure the preservation of your species. Resistance will be overcome through superior force. This transmission will repeat every hour until your response is received." President Chen sat in the White House Situation Room, surrounded by advisors whose expertise suddenly seemed completely inadequate. Similar emergency meetings were taking place in every capital city on Earth as world leaders struggled to process the reality of alien contact. "What are our options?" Chen asked Secretary of Defense Williams. "Limited, Madam President. We have no idea what their weapons can do, but the size of those ships suggests capabilities far beyond anything we possess. A single vessel hovering over New York could carry more firepower than our entire nuclear arsenal. Around the globe, the response was predictably human. Some nations immediately began drafting surrender documents. Others called for unified resistance. Many argued among themselves about the proper course of action, while their citizens watched alien ships hang motionless in the sky. Commander Roth observed these reactions from his flagship, studying intelligence reports with satisfaction. Human governments were behaving exactly as the psychological models had predicted. Fragmented, arguing, paralyzed by the scope of the threat they faced. The response patterns match our projections perfectly, reported his intelligence officer. Multiple competing power structures, no unified command, emotional decision-making overriding strategic thinking. Several nation-states are already preparing surrender transmissions. Roth permitted himself a moment of professional pride. The operation was proceeding ahead of schedule, and his fleet hadn't even needed to demonstrate their weapons yet. But not all of Earth's leaders were paralyzed. In hidden bunkers and secure facilities around the world, military commanders who had spent their careers preparing for the unthinkable began activating contingency plans that few civilians knew existed. General Brooks had commanded special operations forces for 20 years, fighting wars in mountains, deserts, and urban environments where superior technology didn't guarantee victory. As he reviewed the alien transmission, his mind wasn't on surrender but on the practical realities of asymmetric warfare. "Get me Admiral Chen, General Petrov, and Field Marshal Singh on secure channels," he ordered his aide. "If these aliens think we're going to roll over just because they have bigger ships, they don't understand humans very well." The 72-hour deadline approached with humanity appearing to fracture under pressure. News broadcasts showed peace protesters demanding immediate surrender, military officials calling for resistance, and politicians arguing endlessly about the proper response. When the deadline passed with no unified answer from Earth, Commander Roth gave the order to demonstrate superior force. The first target was a military installation in Nevada, chosen for its isolation from civilian populations. The alien ship hovering overhead fired a single energy beam that lasted less than 3 seconds. When the light faded, the entire base had been reduced to a perfectly circular crater of melted sand and metal. Similar demonstrations followed around the globe. Military airfields, naval bases, and missile installations disappeared under precise alien fire. When squadrons of fighter jets attempted to engage the alien vessels, they were swatted from the sky like insects, their missiles exploding harmlessly against energy shields. Within 6 hours of the first attack, surrender messages began broadcasting from every major capital. Presidents, prime ministers, and military leaders appeared on screens worldwide, announcing that resistance was futile and calling for cooperation with the alien forces. To observers aboard the alien fleet, humanity had collapsed exactly as predicted. The primitive species had witnessed superior technology and immediately submitted, just as psychological models indicated they would. Commander Roth transmitted his victory report to the Galactic Council with considerable satisfaction. The initial phase of the Earth operation is complete. Human military resistance has ceased, and their governments have formally surrendered. We will begin establishing occupation zones and resource extraction points within 48 hours. The response from the Council was congratulatory. The unified fleet had achieved their first victory without losing a single ship or crew member. Earth would serve as an excellent training ground for future operations. But in hidden bunkers deep beneath the surface, in mountain caves and underground tunnels, different conversations were taking place. Military leaders who had spent decades preparing for impossible scenarios were adapting their plans to face an enemy unlike any they had imagined. The surrender broadcasts were real, but they were also the first phase of a strategy that alien psychological models had never encountered. Humanity was not giving up. They were going underground, taking the war to places where superior technology might not be enough to guarantee victory. The aliens had won the first battle, but they had never fought an enemy that treated surrender as the opening move in a longer game. 3 months after the surrender, alien patrols walked through the ruins of downtown Seattle while human civilians went about their daily routines under occupation. The scene looked peaceful from orbit, exactly what Commander Roth expected from a conquered population. But beneath the city, In abandoned subway tunnels and forgotten Cold War bunkers, a different reality was taking shape. Dr. Sarah Kim crouched in a maintenance tunnel 50 feet below the surface, examining pieces of wreckage from an alien scout ship that had crashed during the initial invasion. Her team of physicists and engineers worked by candlelight, afraid that electrical signals might be detected by alien sensors overhead. "The metal composition is unlike anything we've seen," whispered Dr. Park, holding a fragment up to the flickering light. "It appears to be some kind of programmable matter that can shift its molecular structure on command." Sarah nodded, making notes in a paper notebook. Digital devices were too risky now that the aliens controlled all satellite communications. "What about the energy source? Any progress on understanding their power systems?" "That's the interesting part," replied Professor Martinez, the team's electrical engineer. "The power cells use principles we understand but arranged in ways we never considered. It's not magic, it's just very advanced engineering. I think we can replicate some of these designs with the right materials." Above ground, the occupation appeared to be proceeding smoothly. Alien administrators had taken control of major government buildings, and human officials who had agreed to cooperate were helping maintain basic services. Food distribution continued, power grids remained operational, and most civilians were adapting to life under alien rule. But the apparent calm was deceptive. Every day, supplies disappeared from alien warehouses. Communication equipment malfunctioned at critical moments. Transport vehicles broke down in remote locations, leaving alien patrols stranded and vulnerable. Master Sergeant Rivera had fought in Afghanistan, Iraq, and 3 different African conflicts before the invasion. He understood that winning a guerrilla war wasn't about defeating the enemy in direct combat. It was about making occupation so costly and frustrating that the enemy eventually decided the territory wasn't worth holding. "Remember, we're not trying to destroy their patrols," he explained to a group of resistance fighters gathered in an abandoned warehouse basement. "We're trying to make them paranoid, tired, and afraid to leave their secure zones. Every time they have to change their routines, every time they have to call for backup, every time they can't predict what we'll do next, we win a small victory." The resistance fighters were a mix of former military personnel and ordinary civilians who had refused to accept defeat. They included construction workers who knew every tunnel and service corridor in the city, computer programmers who understood how to disrupt automated systems, and hunters who could move through forests without being detected. Lisa Park had been a nurse before the invasion. Now she served as a medic for resistance operations while also gathering intelligence from the human collaborators who worked in alien medical facilities. The aliens had advanced healing technology, but they relied on human medical personnel to treat their own forces when they were injured. "Their soldiers have the same vulnerabilities we do," she reported during a planning meeting. "They bleed, they break bones, and they feel pain. The only difference is their equipment and training. Take away their technological advantages and they're just another species trying to survive." The resistance had learned to exploit the aliens' overconfidence. Alien patrols followed predictable routes and relied heavily on their advanced sensors, which worked perfectly in space but struggled with Earth's dense urban environments and complex electromagnetic background. Captain Stone led a team that specialized in ambush tactics, using the city's infrastructure against the occupiers. They had learned to hide explosive devices in storm drains, use construction equipment to block alien vehicle movements, and disappear into subway tunnels before enemy reinforcements could arrive. "The key is understanding their psychology," Stone explained to his team. "They expect us to fight like civilized soldiers, following rules and fighting from fixed positions. Instead, we hit them where they don't expect it, using weapons they don't recognize as weapons, and then we vanish before they can respond." The resistance had also discovered that alien technology, while advanced, was not perfect. Their energy shields could stop bullets and explosives, but they had never been designed to handle certain types of attacks that humans had developed through centuries of warfare. Dr. Kim's underground laboratory had made several breakthrough discoveries. By studying captured alien equipment, they had learned to create electromagnetic pulse devices that could temporarily disable alien sensors. They had also developed new types of explosives that used magnetic fields to disrupt alien shield generators. "We're not trying to match their technology," Sarah explained to a gathering of resistance leaders. "We're trying to find ways around it. Every piece of equipment has weaknesses and every tactical system has blind spots. Our job is to find those weaknesses and exploit them. The aliens were beginning to notice that their occupation was not proceeding as smoothly as expected. Equipment failures were becoming more frequent, and their casualty rates were slowly climbing despite facing an enemy with primitive weapons. Commander Roth reviewed the latest reports with growing frustration. Human resistance was supposed to have ended months ago, but instead it seemed to be growing more organized and effective. Attacks on alien facilities were becoming more sophisticated, and the humans appeared to be learning from each encounter. "They're adapting faster than our models predicted," reported his intelligence officer. "Each time we change our patrol patterns or security procedures, they develop new countermeasures within weeks. It's as if they're treating this occupation as a learning experience." The resistance had indeed turned the occupation into an education in advanced warfare. Every captured piece of alien equipment was studied and reverse-engineered. Every successful attack was analyzed and improved upon. Every failure was examined for lessons that could prevent future mistakes. General Brooks coordinated resistance activities from a network of hidden command centers, staying in contact with similar operations on every continent. The aliens controlled the surface and the airwaves, but they had never learned to fight an enemy that lived underground and thought in decades rather than months. "We're not trying to win this war in the traditional sense," Brooks explained to his staff. "We're trying to make the aliens understand that holding Earth will cost them more than leaving Earth alone. Every day we survive, every small victory we achieve, every lesson we learn from their technology brings us closer to that goal." The resistance knew they were fighting a war that could last for years or even decades. But they also knew something the aliens were just beginning to understand. Humans had survived as a species not because they were stronger than their enemies, but because they were more stubborn than their enemies ever expected. The alien supply convoy had been traveling the same route for 6 weeks, protected by energy shields and armed escorts. Commander Roth's forces had learned to be predictable in their logistics, believing that superior technology made tactical surprise unnecessary. That assumption cost them 8 vehicles and 37 personnel when the humans struck at dawn. Captain Stone watched the burning wreckage from a hillside 2 miles away, studying the alien response through stolen surveillance equipment. The attack had used a combination of traditional explosives and electromagnetic weapons, based on captured alien technology. More importantly, it had worked exactly as planned. "They're following standard protocol," Stone reported into his radio. "Search pattern Alpha, calling for air support, medical teams dispatching to the area. They still think we're fighting their kind of war." The resistance had spent 6 months learning to read alien tactical patterns. Every response was documented, every procedure analyzed, every weakness cataloged for future exploitation. What the humans lacked in technology, they made up for in patience and careful observation. Dr. Sarah Kim's underground laboratory had become a hub of hybrid technology development. Her team had successfully reverse-engineered alien power sources, creating portable devices that could overload alien shields from the inside. They had also learned to modify human weapons with alien targeting systems, giving resistance fighters accuracy that matched their enemies. The key breakthrough came when we realized their technology isn't designed to handle dirty electromagnetic environments, Sarah explained to General Brooks during a secure video conference. "Their systems work perfectly in the clean spectrum of space, but Earth's natural electromagnetic field interferes with their sensors in ways they never anticipated. The resistance had learned to turn Earth itself into a weapon. They used the planet's magnetic field to hide their movements, exploited atmospheric interference to jam alien communications, and took advantage of weather patterns that alien technology couldn't predict or counter." Lieutenant Colonel Maria Santos had been a military intelligence officer before the invasion. Now she led a team that specialized in psychological warfare, using the aliens' own assumptions against them. Her group had learned to predict alien behavior so accurately that they could position ambushes days in advance. "Their tactical thinking is too rigid," Santos explained to her team. "They've been fighting the same way for centuries against enemies who use similar technology. They can't adapt to opponents who think completely differently about warfare." The aliens were indeed struggling to adapt to human tactics. Every time they modified their procedures to counter one type of attack, the humans developed 3 new approaches that exploited different weaknesses. It was like fighting an enemy that evolved in real time. Master Sergeant Rivera had expanded his training program to include thousands of resistance fighters across the continent. They were learning skills that combined traditional guerrilla warfare with alien technology in ways that no military academy had ever taught. "Forget everything you know about fighting fair," Rivera told a group of new recruits. "The aliens fight fair because they're used to facing enemies with similar capabilities. We fight smart because we're used to being outgunned and outnumbered." The resistance had also learned to exploit the aliens' psychological weaknesses. Most alien species had evolved in stable environments where cooperation and predictability were survival advantages. Humans had evolved through constant conflict and crisis, developing mental flexibility that their enemies couldn't match. Dr. Lisa Park had established a network of medical stations that treated both resistance fighters and alien prisoners. Her work had revealed that aliens, despite their advanced technology, were vulnerable to many of the same biological and psychological pressures that affected humans. They experienced stress, fear, and exhaustion just like we do, Park reported to the resistance leadership. Their technology gives them advantages, but it doesn't make them superhuman. When they're tired, frightened, or confused, they make mistakes just like anyone else. The resistance had become expert at creating stress and confusion for their enemies. They used false intelligence to send alien patrols into traps, created phantom communication signals that disrupted alien coordination, and developed psychological tactics that played on alien fears and uncertainties. Commander Roth faced a crisis that his military training had never prepared him to handle. His forces were superior in every measurable way, but somehow they were losing ground to an enemy that should have been defeated months ago. "Casualty rates have increased by 30% over the past month," his intelligence officer reported. "Equipment losses are up 45%. Most concerning, our forces are showing signs of combat stress at levels typically associated with prolonged high-intensity warfare." The humans weren't just fighting back. They were learning and improving faster than alien forces could adapt. Every engagement taught them something new about alien technology, tactics, or psychology that they immediately applied to future operations. Captain Chen had been a computer programmer before the invasion. Her team had successfully hacked alien communication networks using techniques that combined human creativity with stolen alien hardware. They could now monitor alien communications, disrupt their coordination, and even send false orders that led enemy forces into ambushes. "Their cybersecurity is designed to stop attacks from other advanced civilizations," Chen explained. "They never considered threats from species using completely different logical frameworks. We think about information security in ways they can't predict or counter." The resistance had also learned to turn captured alien equipment into weapons that were more effective than the originals. Human engineers had modified alien energy weapons to be more portable, more accurate, and more reliable in Earth's environment. General Brooks reviewed the latest intelligence reports with satisfaction. The resistance was no longer just surviving. It was beginning to threaten alien control of key territories. More importantly, it was proving that humans could not only adapt to alien technology but improve upon it. "We're reaching a tipping point," Brooks reported to resistance leaders worldwide. "Their occupation forces are demoralized, their supply lines are vulnerable, and their tactical advantage is shrinking every day. It's time to move from defense to offense." The aliens had expected to face a primitive enemy that would either surrender quickly or fight using predictable methods. Instead, they found themselves facing an opponent that treated every defeat as a lesson, every captured piece of equipment as an opportunity to learn, and every day of occupation as practice for becoming more dangerous. Commander Roth sent an urgent message to the Galactic Council, requesting additional reinforcements. The simple training exercise on Earth was becoming a prolonged conflict that was consuming resources and personnel at an unsustainable rate. The humans had done something that no other species in galactic history had accomplished. They had turned an invasion into an education, and they were proving to be much faster students than their teachers had ever been. The modified alien fighter screamed through Earth's atmosphere at twice the speed of sound, but its pilot was purely human. Major Williams had learned to fly captured alien aircraft by studying their control systems for months in underground simulators. Now he led a squadron of similar hybrid ships toward the alien orbital platform that controlled satellite communications across North America. Operation Prometheus had begun, at dawn across 7 continents simultaneously. After 18 months of defensive warfare, humanity was finally ready to take the fight to their enemies. The Resistance had learned enough about alien technology to build weapons that their enemies had never seen. Before Dr. Sarakim's team had achieved the impossible by combining human engineering principles with alien power sources. The result was a new generation of weapons that used familiar human tactics enhanced by energy systems that the aliens couldn't counter because they had never encountered anything like them. Remember, we're not trying to match their technology, Williams reminded his squadron over the radio. We're trying to confuse it. Their sensors expect certain energy signatures and response patterns. Our hybrid systems will appear as unknown threats that their automated defenses can't classify or target effectively. The attack on the orbital platform was just one part of a coordinated global offensive. Resistance forces had spent months mapping alien installations, identifying key vulnerabilities, and developing attack plans that exploited every weakness they had discovered during the occupation. Captain Stone led a ground assault on the alien command center in Chicago, using weapons that combined human explosives with alien targeting systems. His team moved through the city's underground infrastructure, emerging at precisely calculated points to disable alien defenses before they could respond. Their reaction time is still based on fighting enemies who announce their intentions, Stone explained to his team as they prepared for the assault. We're going to hit them from 6 directions simultaneously, using weapons they've never seen, following attack patterns that don't exist in their tactical databases. The Resistance had learned that alien military doctrine was based on centuries of fighting similar enemies using comparable technology. They had detailed responses for every known weapon system and tactical approach, but they had no protocols for dealing with human creativity applied to alien hardware. Lieutenant Colonel Santos had developed a new form of psychological warfare that exploited the aliens' overconfidence in their technological superiority. Her teams broadcast false intelligence that sent alien reinforcements rushing to defend installations that weren't actually under attack, while real assaults hit targets that had been stripped of their defenses. They trust their technology more than their instincts, Santos observed as she watched alien forces respond exactly as her psychological profiles had predicted. When their sensors tell them something impossible is happening, they believe the sensors instead of adapting to new realities. The space-based portion of Operation Prometheus was the most ambitious part of the plan. Human engineers had modified captured alien ships with hybrid propulsion systems that were faster and more maneuverable than the originals. The alien fleet in orbit found themselves facing human pilots who understood both human fighter tactics and alien technology. Commander Davis had been a test pilot before the invasion, flying experimental aircraft that pushed the boundaries of human engineering. Now he commanded a squadron of modified alien fighters that could outmaneuver anything in the enemy fleet because they combined the best of both technologies. Their ships are designed for precise, predictable combat, Davis reported as his squadron engaged alien defenders around the lunar base. Our modifications make us unpredictable. We can accelerate, turn, and brake in ways their targeting systems can't anticipate. The aliens were experiencing something that no species in their alliance had ever faced: technological inferiority, despite superior resources. The humans had taken alien technology and improved it by applying engineering, principles that had developed through centuries of warfare against other humans. General Brooks coordinated the global offensive from a hidden command center that had been built inside a mountain, using both human construction techniques and alien materials. The Resistance had learned to think in ways that combined human strategic thinking with alien technological capabilities. Phase 1. Objectives achieved across all theaters. Brooks reported to Resistance leaders worldwide. Enemy communication networks are down, orbital platforms are under our control, and ground forces are advancing on schedule. The aliens are responding exactly as we predicted they would. The success of Operation Prometheus was based on 18 months of careful study and patient preparation. The Resistance had learned to think like their enemies while maintaining the tactical flexibility that made humans so difficult to predict or counter. Dr. Lisa Park had established field hospitals using hybrid medical technology that could treat both human and alien casualties. Her work had revealed that the aliens were just as vulnerable to combat stress and battlefield trauma as any human soldier. Their training assumes they'll always have technological superiority, Park observed as she treated alien prisoners who had been captured during the offensive. When that advantage disappears, they don't know how to adapt. Many of them are showing signs of shock at discovering they can actually lose battles. The Resistance had also learned to exploit the psychological impact of their success. Every alien defeat was broadcast to human populations worldwide, demonstrating that their enemies were not invincible. Morale among human forces soared while alien confidence crumbled. Captain Chen's cybersecurity team had successfully penetrated the alien fleet's central command systems, giving the Resistance access to enemy communications, tactical plans, and supply schedules. The aliens found themselves fighting an enemy that knew their moves before they made them. Their information security was designed to stop sophisticated attacks from other advanced civilizations, Chen explained. They never considered the possibility of attacks from a species that thinks about data and systems in completely different ways. Commander, Roth watched his carefully planned occupation dissolve into chaos as human forces seized control of key installations across the planet. His technological advantage was disappearing as the humans demonstrated weapons and tactics that his training had never prepared him to counter. Request immediate reinforcement from the Galactic Council, Roth transmitted to his superiors. The human resistance has developed capabilities that exceed our original intelligence estimates. They are no longer fighting defensively but have transitioned to coordinated offensive operations. Using hybrid technology, we cannot effectively counter. The message that reached the Galactic Council was unlike anything they had received from a colonial operation. The humans weren't just resisting occupation. They were winning a war against technologically superior forces by being smarter, more adaptable, and more determined than anyone had thought possible. Operation Prometheus had achieved something that military theorists had considered impossible. A primitive species had not only survived invasion by advanced enemies but had learned enough from the experience to turn the tables and become the hunters instead of the hunted. The aliens were beginning to understand why Elder Counselor Vane had warned against underestimating human survival characteristics. They were fighting an enemy that treated every challenge as an opportunity to become more dangerous. The last alien transport ship limped away from Earth's orbital space, its hull scarred by weapons that hadn't existed 2 years earlier. Commander Roth sat in his command chair, staring at the blue planet that had taught his species a lesson about the dangers of underestimating survival instincts. The unified expansion fleet was retreating, but they were leaving behind a humanity that had been transformed by conflict into something the galaxy had never seen before. Elder Counselor Vane stood before the Galactic Council, her ancient features showing no satisfaction at being proven correct. The chamber was silent as delegates from 47 worlds absorbed the implications of the final report from Earth. What was supposed to have been a simple training exercise had become a cautionary tale about the hidden strengths of apparently primitive species. The human species has demonstrated capabilities that our psychological and technological models failed to predict, Vane began, her voice carrying the weight of centuries of experience. They have not merely survived our invasion, they have used it as an opportunity to advance their civilization by several thousand years in the span of 24 months. The holographic display showed images from Earth that would have been impossible before the invasion. Human ships built with hybrid technology patrolled the outer solar system. Space stations constructed using combined human and alien engineering orbited the planet. Most disturbing to the assembled delegates, human exploration vessels were already venturing toward nearby star systems. Delegate Prime Alpha from the Synthetic Collective processed the data with mechanical precision. The humans have achieved faster-than-light capability, advanced materials science, and energy manipulation techniques that match or exceed our own standards. How is this possible for a species we classified as primitive? Vane activated another display showing human settlements throughout the solar system. Because we misunderstood what primitive means. The humans were not technologically advanced, but they possessed something more valuable than advanced technology. They possessed the ability to learn, adapt, and improve under pressure at a rate that no other known species has ever demonstrated. Commander Roth's final report had been circulated to every delegate before the session. The details were sobering for any civilization that might consider humans a potential target. The species that had been defeated by superior technology had reverse-engineered, improved upon, and deployed that same technology in ways their creators had never imagined. General Brooks had become the first human to address the Galactic Council, speaking via quantum communication from Earth's new orbital defense platform. His presentation had been brief and direct, explaining humanity's position with the clarity of someone who had spent 2 years learning to fight impossible odds. "We did not ask for this war," Brooks had told the assembled delegates, "but we learned from it. Every weapon you used against us we studied and improved. Every tactic you employed, we adapted and countered. Every day you occupied our world, we became more capable of ensuring it never happens again. The human orbital defense network was now more sophisticated than anything possessed by most Galactic Council members. The planet was protected by energy shields based on alien technology, but enhanced with human engineering improvements. Weapons platforms throughout the solar system could target threats at distances that made invasion impossible. Dr. Sarah Kim had been appointed as Earth's first Minister of Advanced Technology, overseeing research programs that continued to push the boundaries of what the captured alien technology could accomplish. Her teams had not merely copied alien devices but had understood the underlying principles well enough to create entirely new applications. "The most remarkable aspect of human technological development," reported the Council's chief science advisor, "is their approach to problem solving. Where other species refine existing solutions, humans appear to fundamentally rethink the problems themselves. They have created technologies that are recognizably based on our designs but function in ways we never considered." The economic implications of humanity's rapid advancement were equally concerning to the galactic community. Human manufacturing capabilities had grown exponentially during the occupation, as they learned to produce alien technology using Earth's abundant resources. They were no longer dependent on imports from advanced civilizations. Captain Chen had established Earth's first interstellar communication network, connecting human colonies throughout the solar system and enabling real-time coordination of defensive operations. The system used principles learned from alien technology but implemented with human innovations that made it more efficient than the original designs. "We are facing a species that has achieved in 2 years what most civilizations require centuries to develop," Delegate Knox from the Silicon Collective observed. "Their rate of technological advancement is unprecedented in galactic history." The council chamber erupted in concerned murmurs as delegates realized the implications. If humans could advance this rapidly under pressure, what might they accomplish with time and resources? The species that had been selected as a training target had become a potential threat to galactic stability. Elder Counselor Vane called for order, then continued her presentation. "The humans have demonstrated 3 characteristics that make them unlike any species we have previously encountered. First, they adapt to new challenges faster than those challenges can be modified to counter their adaptations. Second, they improve upon captured technology rather than simply copying it. Third, they treat defeat as education rather than discouragement." The final part of Vane's report was the most sobering. Human exploration vessels were already mapping nearby star systems, establishing outposts and making contact with other species. They were not expanding as conquerors but as equals who expected to be treated with respect, earned through proven capabilities. Master Sergeant Rivera had been promoted to head Earth's new military academy, where human soldiers learned to use hybrid technology alongside traditional tactics. The graduates of this program were already serving aboard human starships, carrying with them combat experience gained fighting technologically superior enemies. "The humans have created a military doctrine that assumes technological disadvantage," Rivera explained to alien military observers who had been invited to study human defensive capabilities. "They train to fight enemies with better equipment, faster ships, and more advanced weapons. This makes them extremely dangerous to any force that relies primarily on technological superiority." The Galactic Council faced a decision that no previous generation of leaders had ever confronted. How should the galactic community respond to a species that had transformed potential extinction into technological advancement? The debate continued for hours, but Elder Counselor Vane's proposal gradually gained support among the delegates. Rather than risk further conflict with an increasingly dangerous species, the Council would officially recognize Earth as an independent world with full territorial rights throughout their solar system. Let this serve as a lesson to future generations. Vane concluded, military strength is not measured only in weapons and technology. Some species possess qualities that make them dangerous not because of what they have, but because of what they can become when challenged. The Council's final decree was transmitted throughout the galaxy, establishing humanity as a protected species with full membership rights in the galactic community. But the real message was clear to any civilization that might consider Earth a potential target. The humans had proven that invasion would not lead to conquest, but to education. Any species that attacked Earth would not destroy humanity, but would instead teach them everything they needed to know to become a threat to their attackers. The planet was now defended not just by advanced technology, but by the proven knowledge that its inhabitants could turn any assault into an opportunity to become more dangerous than before. Commander, Roth's final log entry summarized the lesson that had cost the unified fleet so dearly. The humans are not defenseless because they lack weapons. They are unconquerable because they treat every attack as a chance to become stronger than their enemies ever imagined possible.